Salve, sono Roberto Antonini, un giornalista dell'agenzia di stampa Dire. Oggi parliamo di un libro importante, parliamo di Blue Economy 3.0, la versione aggiornata a 10 anni dall'uscita della sua prima edizione del volume di Gunter Pauli, un imprenditore, un economista, il creatore del concetto della Blue Economy, cioè di un modello economico che mira alla sostenibilità dei processi di produzione grazie allo studio del funzionamento della natura, mimando il funzionamento della natura. Blue Economy 3.0, che esce per le edizioni Ambiente, è la terza edizione di un bestseller, perché tale è stato il primo volume, che ha venduto 1.200.000 copie, che è stato tradotto in 39 lingue, un libro che è stato di ispirazione e ha avuto impatti su molti settori diversi, dall'economia, della produzione, della riflessione sul nostro modo di vivere e di produrre, e che ha stimolato innovazione verso un'economia che guarda, appunto, come abbiamo detto, ai modelli naturali come una forma di sviluppo che coniughi però in sé la necessaria sostenibilità. Un modo di rispondere a bisogni fondamentali di tutti, creando valore, creando posti di lavoro, senza però distruggere la natura, portando un equilibrio nelle nostre azioni quotidiane. Un modello economico che si fonda sul principio della ricerca, dell'iniziativa, della sostenibilità. Uno dei frutti principali di questi concetti è stata un'idea che adesso ha una grande circolazione ed è al centro di moltissime riflessioni, è un po' dello sviluppo che stiamo cercando di ottenere anche in Italia e in Europa, ad esempio quello dell'economia circolare. Ne parliamo con l'autore, ne parliamo con Gunter Pauli, naturalmente da remoto, visto che è questa situazione, vista anche la distanza geografica che ci separa. La Blue Economy come un'alternativa alla consapevole distruzione del pianeta, perché, come dice lei, Paoli, rubare meno è sempre rubare. Ci descrive il modello, il concetto di Blue Economy, nello specifico di quella 3.0, come recita il titolo del suo libro. Abbiamo una soluzione a portata di mano e non ce ne accorgiamo?
When I decided to make an update for my book, The Blue Economy, which was published as a report to the Club of Rome in 2009, I was particularly interested in being able to be much more precise on how it is possible to transform the economic model. You know, it is not enough to have a theory and it's not enough to have the science. You need to have a new culture of entrepreneurship. And that entrepreneurship cannot be bound by the traditional entrepreneurship where we have Excel spreadsheets, business plans, technology audits, when we have the typical focus on trying to be the cheapest on the market. So the blue economy, with its 10 years plus of experience on the market now, has demonstrated that we can have an acceleration of business, an acceleration of the application of science when we change the business model. And this is a very important point. And that is why I focus in the book 3.0, Blue Economy 3.0, not only on the cases, but also on the education and perhaps I should say the inspiration of the entrepreneurs of the future. If we have entrepreneurs that are going to operate in a business model where they try to be the cheapest and have an innovation to have a lower cost model, then none of these entrepreneurs will stand a serious chance. But if we shift the business model from the present one that looks at efficiency, but now we're looking at a business model that looks at resilience, then we will see a new opportunity emerge for many more initiatives. And what is the opportunity? The opportunity, in a very simple summary, is you use what you have. you focus on generating value, because the more value you generate, the more value you have in your community. And the value will be generated first and foremost to respond to the basic needs of people. And if you combine 1, 2, and 3, then you will be able to generate much more employment than we have considered viable to date. And that is really where we are recentering our efforts in Blue Economy 3.0 on the value generation, which is a precondition for job generation.
Lei fornisce numerosi esempi di crescita e di vita sostenibile che rispettano la natura nelle sue leggi fondamentali, mantenendo sicurezza alimentare ed energetica, ma allo stesso tempo riducendo l'impatto sulla biodiversità e sugli ecosistemi. Spesso però possiamo trovare questi modelli e queste situazioni e soluzioni riferite a piccole comunità. Cosa serve? Come si fa a renderle applicabili su larga scala? Come convincere il grande pubblico a cambiare modello? E come si fa a creare anche una volontà politica, ammesso che vi sia una classe politica, diciamo, abbastanza illuminata a dirigersi in questa direzione. E in tutto ciò l'economia fossile, l'economia dello spreco, della distruzione, con la finanza che è sua compagna e spesso padrona, non si ritirerà certo in buon ordine. Come facciamo a convincerli a cambiare? Come facciamo a cambiare questo modello che non è sostenibile?
The key question we have to ask ourselves is, how can we convince the market, the consumer, the policymakers, and academia to change their approach? And of course, when you're in a period like today with the COVID, we are living in what I like to call the zero risk society. That means a society where people don't want to do anything new because they're afraid of the new, they're uncertain about the new, and therefore they rather stick to the old, even when they know that the old is not generating any improvements in the quality of their lives or in the generation of the jobs. Of course, at the outset of the implementation of the blue economy, we mainly worked on smaller communities of 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 inhabitants. But very soon, we realized that the growth in size of projects was not really dependent on a number of people. It was rather dependent on the capacity of the entrepreneurs, the business modelers behind the initiative, to grow the business into one with a larger impact. And some of them have a much larger impact. Let's take the example of stone paper. Stone paper is using the waste from the mines. There are 5 factories already built. There is 1 million tons in capacity, and the Chinese government has basically decided that about a quarter of all production of paper in China, which consumes about 100 million tons per year, well, a quarter of that will become stone paper. And why is that? It's because the government wants to align the needs of the nation with a reindustrialization. Concretely, China has a bad air quality. Everyone knows who's been to Beijing or to Shanghai. So a project that reduces the risk of dust in the air is, of course, a political priority. But second, China is suffering from a dramatic shortage of water. So making paper without needing water is, of course, another priority. Third, China is a country that does not have a lot of fertile land for farming. And with 1.3 billion people to feed, China prefers to have land to farm food than land to farm trees. And if you're able to make paper that doesn't consume trees and doesn't consume water, well, then you can turn land that is now reserved for the farming of trees into farming for food. You know, when there are multiple policy priorities that are aligned with each other, then it is not difficult to make a shift from small scale to large scale projects. We're seeing the same happening today in a country like Morocco. Morocco is importing 340,000 tons of cardboard every year to package the fruits and the vegetables exported to Europe in particular. And of course, they have phosphate mining with a lot of dust in the air. And so Morocco is planning to have the first stone paper factory, substituting 340,000 tons of imports with an opportunity to generate most likely between 600 and 800 jobs in the first phase. Now, when you look at the economic situation whereby you can align multiple priorities for the country and you can combine it with innovations in business models, then we will be able to scale up and speed up the implementation of those new technologies.
La vicenda di padre Zamuco che lei racconta nel libro fa pensare che si possa cambiare di più e meglio dove si è meno, dove oggi si sta peggio. È quindi dall'Africa che potrà partire un cambiamento. Ad esempio, se guardiamo a un passato abbastanza recente, sulla telefonia il continente ha saltato a pie pari la parte a filo, diciamo, e in alcuni casi, in alcune aree, all'avanguardia sui servizi mobile, che arrivano a stimolare realtà come il microcredito, che porta effetti sull'imprenditoria in generale, che crea ricchezza nelle comunità e anche un miglioramento delle condizioni, ad esempio della condizione femminile. Cosa ne pensa?
When we are looking at the inspiration we need to come up with innovative business models, very often it is an extraordinary opportunity to be in a place where there is no history, there is no prearranged infrastructure, or there is no particular experience, so that we can do what is called in English leapfrogging. We can jump forward with a speed and an agility that is unknown before. Let me give the example, as is mentioned, of the Songhai Center in Benin, where Father Nzamujo has been able to create, in a peri-urban environment of the capital city of Benin, a food production system that is so efficient that it beats just about any, I would say, peri-urban farming experience, even in Europe. It is amazing to see that, for example, already in 1986, the slaughterhouse waste from the small abattoir of the Songhai Center, all that slaughterhouse waste was converted into a feed for the larvae of the flies. And in 5 days, these flies would have converted from 1 kilogram to 375 kilograms, showing this dramatic machinery of protein production. Well, Africa has the first billion valuated company in the field of converting slaughterhouse waste, agricultural wastes, and even some human wastes, converting that into feed for flies, and flies become feed for fish farming or for chickens. Now, in Europe, this has been prohibited for a long time because of the mad cow disease experience. But in the meantime, Europe has come to terms that, of course, what they know in Africa, like our parents and grandparents used to know, if you look at a cadaver of any dead animal, immediately the flies will lay their eggs, and the larvae will be considered like the hygiene agents of the world, and they will digest any detritus. They will digest anything from this dead corpse in order to transform into a thick larvae, which, if you ask the chicken, it's its preferred food. Now, the leadership and the flexibility of Africa, without having very constraining regulations, and very often building on tradition, which is building on nature's example, is also felt and very well observed when we look at mobile communications. You know, Africa in several countries made an immediate jump to mobile communications. If you look at South Africa, where there is 112% penetration of the market, that means that everyone in South Africa has a cell phone, and 12% of the people have even two phones. And what is the result of this? When you have this full coverage of the whole population, you can do something that banks have never succeeded in doing. I mean, in Africa, the banks have a very poor penetration of serving the marginalized people, whereas marginalized people will have a cell phone and be able to be bankable, provided the banks are shifting to the new technologies. M-Pesa is in Kenya an extraordinary example, and it is functioning so well, most likely because there was no baggage from past technologies and past infrastructure, which was still looking for its write-off and its amortization. So I am quite satisfied with also my 8 years of living in Africa to have experienced how very often Africa can leapfrog and surprise even the Europeans and the Americans with their capacity to stimulate the entrepreneurship and to get down to new business models from which even we can learn.
Veniamo a noi. L'Italia ha una lunga storia, una grande tradizione di utilizzo delle materie, vista la carenza di risorse del paese. Abbiamo sviluppato soluzioni all'avanguardia nel recupero dei materiali, siamo una sorta di potenza mondiale nel soft power dell'economia circolare, con campioni, anche se andiamo a guardare invece allo sviluppo di settori come quello energetico, veri e propri campioni delle rinnovabili come Enel, che ormai è leader nel mondo tra le società elettriche. E allora stiamo facendo la cosa giusta? O cosa potremmo fare ancora di più? Cosa vede nell'Italia? Quali modelli vede in Italia da questo punto di vista? E qual è la direzione che potremmo prendere a suo giudizio?
You know, Italy is on the cutting edge of so many initiatives. And then again, the question is not, are we doing right or are we doing wrong? The question is, how much better can we do? And Italy can do much better. I mean, I'm giving the example of slow food and Carlo Petrini. I mean, Italy is clearly leading in this whole movement of getting local, healthy food where you pay a fair price to your farmer. If we realize that across Europe, most of the farmers are only earning 300 euro per hectare per year, then we wonder, how is it ever possible that still any young person is interested to become a farmer? It is much easier to go on unemployment benefits than to work as a farmer. The key question we have to ask ourselves, how can we grow this into something where we generate more value? And Italy clearly has the potential to do it. One example, the European Union has been financing farmers not to farm. When you are in a situation whereby we are looking for resilience in our community, where we want to strengthen our immune system, healthy food is, as the Chinese already described millennia ago, healthy food is your best medicine. It's your best way to prepare yourself for some health risks. And so if you have healthy food, well, then you will need to have local food, fresh food. And that is exactly what Italy has been teaching the world through the works of Slow Food and Carlo Petrini. But then the question is, how much land is available? Well, we have calculated that approximately 800,000 hectares of land would be available in Italy for farming, but for which there are no farmers anymore, because the generation of farmers has basically gone on pension and have retired. Now, if we look at the high unemployment rates, and if we see some of the very concrete examples that have been implemented in Spain, or even when we mention Songhai in Benin, or we talk about Rumpan in Sweden, when you look at these concrete examples, we see there is a clear pathway not only to put 800,000 of quasi-organic land into production, generate thousands of jobs in the process, but increase the immunity of the people because they're eating fresh and healthy food. Now, the same logic can be applied to renewable energies. Italy has been on the forefront of getting renewable energies with very generous financial situations offered by the government. Now, what we need to see is how far can Italy move forward with its potential that it clearly has, and it finds the synergies between 2 or 3 sectors. For example, farming for food is not the only purpose. We will need farming also for chemistry, because we're going to have, in the new Green Deal of the European Union, we're going to have also the opportunity to introduce green chemistry. Now, green chemistry ideally implies you are deriving higher value chemical content, chemical prowess from your farm produce. And if that is then linked to a closed loop system, so that whatever you have produced from the farm returns to the farm, then you are ensuring that the fertility of the land will be maintained. So while we can do the farming, we can move into the energy, we can move into the chemistry, but that requires more energy. And are we prepared to make this unique nexus in Italy, where Italy has the strength on the farming side? It has its strength in renewable energies like with NL, but it also has the strength that it can bring to the market the green chemistry, which would give a tenfold revenue to the farmers in terms of integrated value added. So I believe that Italy's future is not just farming, is not just renewable energy, is not just intelligent financing. The future of Italy is the merger of several of these activities like farming, energy, and chemicals and green chemistry, in order to dramatically lift the value added that can be generated. Let's not forget that if a farmer is only earning 300 euro per hectare, there is no future for farming. But if we move into green chemistry, and at the same time we're securing the renewable energy to make the green chemistry happen, then we will have given a great future to farming. And if on top of that, the farming is shifting to producing locally with fresh food all year round for the local population, then I think Italy will find a tremendous dynamics into its economic growth and development. The economy will shift from a drive to efficiency only to an economy where efficiency will be complemented by resilience.